All right, so we are diving into a resource that you sent to us, and it's called O Guia Completo dos Números em Inglês. So we're going to be talking about English numbers today.
That's right.
And I'm excited about this because I think this is something that a lot of our listeners probably think they have a handle on.
Yeah,
But I'm excited to take a deep dive and see what we can find.
absolutely. Yeah, there's always something more to discover with any aspect of language. And I think numbers are so fundamental.
Yeah.
Like the guide points out, they're really woven into how we communicate every day.
Yeah. And, I think for our listeners, especially just
Uh-huh.
thinking about travel, if you're traveling internationally, especially
Okay, absolutely.
needing to understand, gate numbers
The
and
hotel rooms, all that.
hotel room numbers. Yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's so crucial.
Yeah, it can really make or break a smooth travel experience if you
What
can't understand those basic numbers.
For sure, for sure. And it goes beyond travel too, right? The source reminds us how often we use numbers for personal information.
Right.
Phone numbers, passport information,
Absolutely.
even spatial references, like saying something's 4 blocks away or telling the time.
The temporal cues, yeah, 3
Mhm.
o'clock p.m.
Exactly.
So getting comfortable with English numbers can really streamline your communication.
For sure.
and help you avoid misunderstandings and just feel more confident overall.
Totally. And I think that's really our goal with this deep dive is to give our listeners that confidence.
Yeah.
So why don't we start
Yeah.
at the very beginning
Okay.
with 0 through 10.
All right. Sounds good. The guide notes that 0 actually has kind of a synonym.
Oh.
You can also say "oh,"
Yeah.
particularly for things like phone numbers,
Oh, interesting.
where you're pronouncing each digit individually.
Got it.
So you might hear someone say 012 instead of 012.
Makes sense.
So yeah, let's run through those real quick. 0 or 012, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, those are the building blocks.
Exactly. Now as we move into like the teens.
Yeah, the guide points out something I thought was pretty fascinating.
Okay.
The word teenagers itself actually comes from that suffix,
Oh, wow.
teen, in the numbers 13 through 19.
That is cool.
Oh, yeah, let's go through those 11, 12, and then things start to shift at 13, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
And then 20.
and then 20, exactly.
It's interesting how 11 and 12 have their unique forms,
Yeah,
and then boom, that teen sound just
Yeah.
takes over.
right. It's like you can almost see the historical evolution of the language there.
Yeah, totally. Now, moving on from 20, the guide gives us a clear pattern.
Yeah, it's a really nice building block approach.
Okay.
We basically use 20 as the base, and we just add the numbers 1 through 9,
Okay.
and typically with a hyphen in between.
Got it. So 21, 22, all the way up to 29. And then we hit 30, and then we repeat that pattern, 31, 32, up to 39.
Exactly. And that same pattern just continues all the way through the tens.
Okay. So 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and finally 90.
And that gets us all the way to 99.
99, perfect.
Yeah, once you understand that base 10 structure,
Yeah.
it's a pretty consistent system.
And then we move on to hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds. And the guide makes it really clear here
Okay.
that for hundreds, we use the numbers 1 to 9, followed by 100.
Okay.
And importantly, 100 stays singular.
Oh, so it doesn't become hundreds?
No, even if you have multiple hundreds.
Oh, that's important to remember.
Yeah, it's one of those little quirks of the language.
Gotcha.
So we have 100,
Yeah.
200, 300,
Up to 900.
all the way to 900 exactly.
Okay.
And the guide gives us some examples like 100
Mm-hmm.
and 600.
Okay.
And then when we have what are called like broken hundreds, so numbers like 157, the guide points out we basically add the structure of those numbers up to 99
Got it.
that we already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And the use of "and" is actually optional in some cases.
Oh, so you could say 157
Yeah,
or 157.
that's good. Both are perfectly fine.
Both are understood.
Right.
Got it. And that pattern continues with other hundreds like 831 or 831.
Exactly. It's really just layering on what we already know.
Got it.
Now moving into even bigger territory.
Thousands.
Thousands. Exactly. The guide mentions that thousands are often grouped together to make them easier to say.
Okay.
And the key word here is thousand.
Okay.
And just like 100,
Yeah.
it doesn't take a plural form.
So no thousands.
No thousands. It's always thousand.
Very important.
So we have 1,000, 2,000, and so on.
Okay.
And the guide gives us a clear example. 2,000 is 2,000.
Okay.
And when we have additional numbers within the thousand, like 2020,
Uh-huh.
it's 2020.
2020.
Yeah. And something interesting to note here, the guide points this out, is There's actually a difference in how we format large numbers
Oh, okay.
between English and Portuguese.
Yeah, I've run into this before. Yeah.
Yeah, so in English, we use commas to separate the thousands, whereas in Portuguese, periods are used for that.
Right. So 2067
Exactly.
would be written with a comma.
Yes, 2067.
Whereas in Portuguese, it would be a period.
Yeah,
That's really important to remember
absolutely.
because, if you're reading a number
Yeah,
and you're used to the Portuguese way,
you could easily get tripped up.
totally.
Definitely.
So just to give a couple more examples, like 13,489
Exactly.
would be written as 13,489.
Mhm.
And then if we go even bigger, like 728,613.
Yeah, that would be written 728,613.
Exactly. So it might look more complicated when
Yeah.
you see it written down.
Yeah,
But if you break it down into those chunks of hundreds and thousands,
exactly.
it follows the same patterns that we've already learned.
It all builds on itself.
Now, the guide gives a really good tip specifically for years.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
So years in the thousands,
Right.
we often split the number into two pairs.
Uh-huh.
So like 2021 would be
That's-
2021.
Yeah.
1897 would be 1897,
Mm,
1990.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's such a common way to say years.
Right.
It's much more conversational.
Yeah. Do you have any idea why that might have become so common?
I'm not totally sure. It's an interesting question. I think part of it might just be for ease of speaking.
Yeah. It's definitely easier to
Well, it
say.
scrolls off the tongue.
Right. And I wonder if it's also because for many years, the focus was really on those last two digits,
That's true.
to distinguish the year within a century.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've tackled thousands.
Thousands. What's next? Even bigger numbers.
Millions.
All right, let's go there.
And I'm assuming the pattern continues.
You would assume correctly. The guide assures us that it does.
Hmm.
We simply add the word million.
Okay.
And as you might have guessed,
It stays singular.
it stays singular, exactly. No, millions.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so 1 million, 2 million, and so on.
Gotcha.
And the guide gives some really impressive examples
Okay.
just to illustrate the structure.
Yeah.
So 6,784,661.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a mouthful.
Okay.
But you can see how it all builds on those previous rules for hundreds and thousands.
Right.
And then we have 31,459,102.
Okay.
And finally, a really substantial number, 859,321,918.
That's a big one.
It is, but it's still manageable if you break it down into those familiar chunks.
Exactly.
Hundreds, thousands, millions.
So we've done a good job with the cardinal numbers,
Yeah.
but the guide also introduces us to something called ordinal numbers.
Oh, yeah. Ordinal numbers are fascinating.
Okay, and what are ordinal numbers?
So those are the numbers we use to indicate order. So
Mhm.
things like first, second, third, and so on.
Got it.
And the guide correctly points out that the forms for first, second, and third,
Uh-huh.
those are kind of unique. They don't really follow a pattern.
So first, second, and third are just exceptions.
Yeah, basically, you're just going to memorize those.
Okay.
But from fourth onwards, there's a more general rule.
Oh,
We
what?
had that suffix, athe.
Okay.
As always with English,
Yeah.
there are a few spelling changes to watch out for.
Of course.
So 5 becomes fifth.
Okay.
8 becomes eighth. We just add that H.
Okay.
9 becomes ninth. We drop that E.
Got
A
it.
12 transforms into 12th.
Okay.
And 20 becomes 20th.
Wow. Yeah, those little spelling changes
Yeah,
definitely be tricky.
they can trip you up.
So to recap, we have 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th. Okay, and what happens when we get to the tens, like 30, 40, and so on?
Yeah, the guide gives us a nice consistent rule here.
Okay,
We replace that Y at the end of the cardinal number
okay,
with IF.
got it.
So 30 becomes 30th, 40 becomes 40th, 50 becomes 50th, and so on all the way to 90th.
Okay, so that's a pretty easy rule to remember.
Yeah, once you know the pattern, you're good to go.
And what about when we combine these, like 21st or 32nd?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
The guide clarifies that for these combined ordinal numbers, only the very last digit takes that ordinal form.
Oh,
So the tens part stays as the cardinal number.
got it.
So 71 becomes 71st,
Okay.
92 becomes 92nd,
Uh-huh.
and for a larger example, 489 becomes 489th.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it keeps things from getting too complicated.
So we've covered cardinal numbers, ordinal numbers.
We've done a lot of numbers.
We've done a lot of numbers now for
Yeah.
a fun little twist. The guide introduces us to idiomatic expressions
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting.
that incorporate numbers.
Yeah, these can really enrich your understanding of English
Okay.
and help you grasp the nuances of what people are actually trying to say.
This is where the language comes alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the guide has this fantastic collection of these expressions.
Okay, let's dive in.
All right.
So first up, we have a million miles away.
Yeah. This one doesn't literally mean someone is a million miles away.
Right, of course not.
It actually signifies that someone is distracted.
Okay,
Their thoughts are elsewhere.
got it.
And the guy gives a great example. Last night, I was a million miles away. You can almost picture that absent-minded stare.
Totally. Okay, what about back to square one?
Yes. This one implies that you have to go back to the very beginning to start over.
Okay.
Like if you were working on a project and you hit a major setback,
Yeah.
you might say, oh man, we're back to square one.
Right, so it's that feeling of having to start all over again. Okay, how about 50-50?
50-50, that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, it means something is divided equally.
Right, 50% for each person or part.
Got it. Okay, this next one I really like, dressed to the nines.
Yes. This means someone is exceptionally well-dressed, looking their absolute best.
Okay, so it's like really fancy?
Yeah, it implies putting a lot of effort into your appearance.
Okay. At the 11th hour.
Oh, this one's great. It means something is done at the very last possible moment.
Oh, so like just in the nick of time.
Exactly. The guide even gives the Portuguese equivalent.
Oh, what is it?
Os 45 do segundo tempo.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Very visual.
Okay. How about like $1,000,000? This one sounds pretty positive.
It means feeling absolutely fantastic, healthy, and happy.
Okay.
Or looking exceptionally good.
So it could refer to how you feel or how you look or something looks.
Right. So for people, it would be, I feel like $1,000,000.
Okay.
And for objects, it would be, it looks like $1,000,000.
Got it. Okay. 100 to 1 chance or 100 to 1 shot.
This one means something is highly improbable. Very unlikely to happen.
So not good odds.
Not good odds at all.
Okay.
Like winning the lottery or something.
Okay. 24/7.
This one means all the time. Constantly, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Got it. Okay.
Like that feeling when you just can't stop thinking about something.
Yeah. Okay, let's do a quick run through of some more of these great expressions from the guide.
Sounds good.
So 9 to 5 attitude or 9 to 5 mentality.
This one implies doing the absolute minimum required at your job.
Okay, so not really going above and beyond.
No, just putting in the bare minimum effort.
Okay. Put 2 and 2 together.
This means to deduce something, to figure something out based on the available information.
Like solving a mystery.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, six-pack.
Six-pack refers to well-defined abdominal muscles.
Got it. To the nth degree.
This means to the maximum extent completely.
Okay, to zero in on.
This means to focus very closely and precisely on something.
Okay, give my 2 cents.
That's a common way to offer your opinion.
Okay, never in a million years.
This means never under any circumstances.
Okay, and finally, it takes 2 to tango.
This one means that both parties involved in a situation share the responsibility.
Especially in like a disagreement or a conflict.
Exactly. It's not a one-sided thing.
And the guide really emphasizes that understanding these expressions is so important for fluency.
Absolutely.
And just communicating more naturally in English.
Yeah, they add so much color and richness to the language.
They really do. Wow, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We started with the basics, 0 through 10,
Right.
worked our way through the teens, and the tens tackled hundreds, thousands, millions.
Even looked at how to say years.
Yeah, and then we navigated those tricky ordinal numbers.
And then we had some fun with idioms.
Exactly. So now you should have a really solid foundation
Yeah.
for using English numbers with confidence.
In a wide range of situations.
Hopefully you've had some aha moments. And this has given you a shortcut to feeling more informed and prepared.
Right?
Whether you're planning a trip, getting ready for a meeting,
Yeah,
or just expanding your English knowledge.
absolutely.
You should feel a lot more comfortable and less anxious when numbers come up in English now.
I hope so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Now, it's interesting to think about how many different ways numbers are integrated into the English language.
It really is.
We talked about counting,
Right.
but then we have these really nuanced idioms
Yeah.
that express abstract ideas.
Right. It's amazing how much depth there is to something as seemingly simple as numbers.
It really makes you wonder what other linguistic elements might hold those kinds of surprises.
That's a good question to ponder.
Right. What about like dates?
Oh, yeah. Dates are
Or
fascinating.
measurements?
Yeah, measurements have their own unique set of challenges.
Yeah, so maybe those could be some interesting avenues for our listeners.
Definitely something to explore further.
To continue their learning journey.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this numerical adventure.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.
See you then.